Kelsey, and I'm joined with Camille here, both from Positive Futures. And we are going to go over some helpful tips today to get you and your dog prepared for Thanksgiving. Or, I'm sorry, Christmas. Good grief. We've got Christmas coming up. There's Hanukkah. Lots of people are having parties. There's going to be New Year's celebrations. And all of these things are new and exciting, but they can also be stressful for our dogs. And so there's a few things that we're going to need for you guys to do in order to help make this process seamless and as low stress as possible for us. We are going to be taking questions. So if you guys have questions while we're going along, please be sure to post them in the comments and we will take some time to answer those at the end. So first off, Camille is going to go over some different training behaviors that you guys are going to need to kind of freshen your dog up on, make sure that you've got. All right.
All right, so for the holidays, one of the things that is really important and you want to make sure that you are up to date on is attention. So you want to make sure that you can get your dog's attention and keep your dog's attention. Because with the holidays, whether you're traveling or having people come over, there's going to be a lot of distractions, people moving around, food smells, food maybe being dropped around. So it's going to be a challenge for your dog to stay focused. So you really want to freshen that up before you have all the commotion going on.
Mm-hmm.
So nice little games you can play for attention are the name game. The look game are nice little refreshers that you can play, and you can kind of
Oh, did we lose you, Camille? She is frozen on that end. Give us just a minute, guys. Thanks for your patience. So she was talking about the name game. So with the name game, you want to make sure that you can get your dog's attention. If you are clients of ours, you have heard us say a million times, attention on cue is the ultimate foundation behavior, because if you can get your dog's attention and they know how to come when called or they know how to settle on a mat, you're going to be able to ask them for that skill. But if you don't have their attention, you can pretty much just assume that they're not hearing you when you ask them for things. So, if you can take 3 minutes in the morning, 3 to 5 minutes in the evening, and you guys can work on, watch me and click and treat, or look, click and treat, whatever words you guys want to use, make sure you freshen them up on the name game. And Camille just said her Wi-Fi just crashed, so she'll be back with us in just a minute. We're going to go on to the second, which are door manners. So during the holidays, if you are coming and going, or family and friends are coming and going, that door is going to be open a lot. And some people who have dogs or don't have dogs are not quite as mindful about that door being opened, right? Accidents can happen. We're carrying in presents or carrying in food. So you want to make sure that your dog knows how to wait or how to stay at your door, okay? So whenever you're going to practice this skill, I always recommend that you clip a leash on your dog, because when they're in the learning process, we always want to have kind of a fail-safe or a backup plan, right? They're learning how to wait. They don't quite know how to do it yet. So when that door opens, we want to make sure that we do have something attached to them to prevent them from moving out. But, if you're going to take your dog on a walk, go ahead and practice a few repetitions of wait at the door before you head on that walk. So it's an easy skill that you can kind of tie into your normal routine and get a few repetitions done. The other thing you can do, if you live in a household with more than one person, which a lot of you probably do, you can practice wait at the door as somebody comes into the house. So every night when you come home from work is an opportunity for that door to come open, right? And there's a person there, because the difference about practicing wait on your own and the real live time when you're going to need it is that when you're practicing on your own, there's not a distraction on the other side of that door. So using real life opportunities of friends or family coming over to practice that skill is going to be super important. And then remember, day of, if you don't quite have that skill on cue, then you're going to want to put your dog on leash or put up a baby gate to prevent them from accidentally, busting through that door. And we've got Camille back with us here, so I'll go ahead and let her take over on our third behavior, which is recall.
Yeah, sorry, Transformer Blue, we lost power. We were a little bit off the grid for a little bit. So yeah, the third skill you want to work on is recalls, especially because with the holidays, lots of people coming into the house, lots of opportunities for the doors to be left.
Nope, we lost her again. Oh, there she is. Hang on, guys. Sorry about this. Thanks for your patience. All right, there she is.
So with doors being left open, you want to make sure that your dog has a solid recall so that you can get them back. I usually would like to practice a lot in the front yard, because if your dog runs out of the house, that's usually where you're going to have to recall them from. So using your long line, practicing a lot of come inside the house and go out and come inside the house, so that it becomes pretty much automatic for your dog, and they don't get so excited to be outside that they just kind of bolt and go explore everything around the neighborhood.
Yeah, and we just talked about, before you're going out on a walk, clip your dog on a leash and practice a few repetitions. Wait, you can also practice a few repetitions of releasing your dog through the doorway and then calling them back into you. Because like Camille said, day of, all that excitement is going to be happening at that front door. So we want to make sure your dog has lots of opportunities of practicing coming back inside the house from that location, just in case they accidentally slip out.
And another skill that is going to be really important on the holidays is working on settle or place, so that your dog can go and hang out on their beds or mat. Especially with all the movement and commotion, you're going to be busy cooking, you're going to be busy talking with your family, having guests over. You're really not going to have a whole lot of time or attention to really do any training with your dog, and it's really not something that you want to do during the holidays. You would rather much spend time with the people that are visiting. So having that really nice, go to your place, lay down and settle. You can give your dog a food puzzle at that point. That way you can have some quiet time. You know exactly where your dog is. They're relaxed. They're enjoying the company, but not kind of being obnoxious and being in the middle of everything. But that's something that obviously doesn't come overnight. So you really want to work on building that duration, and kind of adding some distractions, so that come the holidays, when you have all of the commotion of people and food and distractions, that your dog is still able to maintain that nice, calm settle on their beds.
Yep. Yeah. And we're going to take a minute later on in this Facebook Live to talk about management, but settle on a mat, like Camille said, it's a skill that takes a little bit of time for your dog to develop and master. So if you haven't quite mastered the skill, settle is definitely a skill that you could use a little bit of management, a little, tether to a piece of furniture or a little X pen around that settle mat, just to help keep them in the vicinity of that mat.
For sure. And another skill that you want to work on too, especially if your dog, is not going to be able to hold that long settle with distractions, and you think your dog is going to need to be either crated or behind a baby gate or an X-pen, you also want to work on those skills ahead of time, because it's really not fair for your dog to be able to be crated, X-pen, with all the people in commotion going over if it's cold turkey and they haven't done it for a while. So you really want to kind of bring the crate out, do a couple of repetitions of sending them in there, giving them a nice food puzzle or chew in there, so that they can kind of get used to being in their little spot, a little bit away from what's going on, and they don't think it's distressing, or they don't vocalize to try to get out or get your attention.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last skill that we're going to cover, leave it. So that's an important skill for you and your dog to have as well, because let's face it, if we have management set up and we have a dog on a settle mat, we are going to drop something. It's kind of inevitable. So teaching your dog to refrain and kind of hold themselves back from going after something that you drop, or something on a table, something on a counter. And when we teach Leave It, we actually teach dogs to look at us instead of that item, because it's a really helpful way to then have their attention to be able to ask them to stay or to back up or out of the room, right? And it gives you the opportunity to then direct them further while you can get that item away and pay them for it. So with all of these skills, we do have a little surprise for you guys. We are working on tutorials for each of those. So if you do not have that skill yet established with your dog, we're going to be, over the next week or so, releasing some tutorial videos to help you guys work on those. So I'll be sure to post those directly here on our page, and we'll make it really easy for you guys to find. So make sure that you come back and check in with us on that. And it looks like Camille is still having internet issues. So I'm going to move on to our next item here, which is exercise. Okay. So we've all heard that a tired dog is a good dog, and that's true, right? We need our dog's needs to be met. So we need them to be able to offer relaxation for us, right? We need them to be able to have that exercise kind of out of the way. So it's really important that you guys make sure that your dogs are appropriately exercised. And when we say exercise, we don't just mean physical exercise, we also mean mental exercise. And it's important that you find a balance between the two, because if they're physically exhausted, they're going to take a nap and wake right back up ready to go again. We need to make sure that we also are working the brain so that you can tire the body as a whole. So Camille, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what exercise should be done day before and day of?
Yeah, for sure. So usually the day before is when I like to do kind of a strenuous exercise to make sure that we get that physical tiredness in. So, if your dog likes agility, that's a good time to practice agility. Usually when I was in Florida and it wasn't cold, we would do a nice lake swimming for an hour the day before a big holiday so that we get that really nice physical tired in. And then the day of, I will usually choose an activity that is a little bit physical, but that is also very calming. So you want to avoid amping your dog up. So I know going to the dog park and playing fetch seems like it's a great way to get your dogs tired. And while you'll get some physical tiredness out of it, a lot of times it'll amp them up mentally. And so then you have a dog that takes a 5-minute nap and is, all right, let's go, let's do it again. So usually, day of is a nice time to go for a hike in the woods so that your dog gets a lot of sniffing time, lots of smells to pick up, walking up and down hills is really nice because it gets that physical activity in, but it's kind of slow moving and calming and not something that's going to get them all amped up. And then same thing, having those, nice puzzles and food enrichment activities ready so that you can keep their minds busy once you're home and you get busy with cooking and getting ready for your guests or, going to parties. That way you still have an outlet for them.
Yeah. And remember too that every dog is different. Every breed is different. So make sure that you guys are smart and doing, appropriate exercise for your dog. We don't want, really old dogs that are having mobility issues going out and playing fetch or something, right? We want to keep things safe. And same thing for puppies. Puppies do not have growth plates that are closed completely. And so it's really important that we avoid high impact exercises with them as well. So like Camille said, a nice long sniffing walk would be a good exercise for those types of dogs. Awesome. All right, so we're moving on to our next, which is mental management. So this is going to be really, really important. You guys are going to need to have lots of things ready for your dogs to do, just like you would have coloring books for a toddler to keep them busy. We're going to have puzzles ready for our dogs. So Camille, go ahead and talk to us about those.
Yeah, for sure. You want to have different things ready ahead of time because the day of Christmas or the day before is not when you're going to be able to stuff gongs or put puzzles together. So you want to have those ready in the freezer so that it's really easy to take out. And you will also want to make sure that you have a variety of different things because if you always get the same thing, it kind of loses its stimulation aspect. It's like, oh, here it goes again. So we have a lot of different stuff. So here we have a little snuffle mat. In my box of wonders, as I call it, I have a Kong wobbler that goes in, and then the dog has to move around. I have a nice little licky mat. So those are great when they're frozen because they take a long time to eat everything. We have hollow bones that we can stuff with yummy cream cheese and kibbles, which also are interesting. The classic Kong, which is great, all-around favorite. And then I have kind of different types of rubber toys that I can put food on that are different and kind of engage my dog's brain differently. And I'll sometimes even put together boxes for my dog. So I'll keep old shoe boxes and I'll put old newspaper, wrapping paper, put kibble in there, put a few Kong, maybe a bone in there so that, she pretty much has to open the box, pull things out, sniff around and find things. And that's a great way to keep their mind busy. And, that way you don't have to really worry about what they're doing if you're cooking or entertaining people.
Exactly. And I always plan to have, like Camille said, a variety of those things pre-prepared because, day of, you're going to have so many things to do. You're going to forget, right? Or run out of time to do it all. But if you get them all prepped the day before, they can go in the freezer or they can go in your pantry, depending on what's in them. And then they're ready. And then, you notice that your dog is starting to get a little too excited with some of the guests, and out comes a frozen Kong to help them stay stationary and help them stay relaxed. So it's really important that you guys prepare those items beforehand so that you have them ready and you can use them. Now, real quick before we head on to the next topic, Camille, talk to us a little bit, or let's talk about how to use those, when to use those, and how to be proactive versus reactive.
For sure. So a lot of times, with your food puzzles, you want to make sure that the timing is right. And you don't want your dog to get obnoxious or to get agitated or distressed before they get it, because then by then it's a little too late, and your dog might not show any interest in the food puzzle. So those are called, what we usually call them, pacifiers. So it's really just like babies. You want to give it to them before they're fussing. It's really not the right time. So usually a really good time is once you put your dog in a crate or a pen and people are coming in. That's a great time, just as people are starting to arrive, to give them the food puzzle, because then they're going to engage with it before the commotion starts, and so they'll keep their focus on the item. And especially if you have dogs that get easily excited or a little nervous about company, this really helps kind of pair the arrival of people with, I get my special chew toy, and I just stay in my spot and chew on my little toy. When people come in, and you can level that excitement and make sure that if your dog is anxious, that they're not getting that little boost of stress because people are coming in.
Yeah. The other thing too is that, you talked about appropriate exercise and wanting day of exercise to be kind of low arousal, to tire them out, but to not jazz them up or amp them up too much. And the same thing goes for the puzzle toys and enrichment items that you guys are choosing for your parties or events that you're having. Our goal is to keep the dog relaxed and quiet, because then settling, greeting politely, staying on the ground instead of jumping on people and counters, all of that's going to be easier if that arousal level is a bit lower. So be strategic and think about the puzzles that you're preparing, because if, for example, the Kong wobbler really gets your dog jacked up and they want to flip it all over the room to get all the food out, then it's going to be hard for them to settle, right? If Kongs or things to chew on still keep them busy, but keep them at a lower energy level, then that might be a more appropriate item. So really think about your dog, think about how they interact with the toys and their energy level when they do that, and try to pick out those activities that are going to be a little bit more calm for them to do. All right. Anything else on mental management that you want to add in?
No, just
okay. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So now we're going to move into day of management. Okay, so if you walk into any of our homes, you will see lots of baby gates, X pens, leashes, harnesses, all handy, because management is a really important part of your training program. And it's a really important part of kind of keeping your life lower stress. Management is not training, okay? So management is anything that we use to help prevent unwanted behavior from happening. So we already talked about the door manners and your dog, potentially sneaking out the door. And we talked about putting a leash on your dog when you're practicing wait or when you're letting family and friends in. So that would be a form of management. The leash doesn't teach the dog how to wait at the door, but it is preventing them from escaping if they decided to try, right? So day of management, you're going to want to make sure you have lots of options, okay? So baby gates and X pens might be helpful to keep your dogs out of the kitchen area. Maybe there's a lot of food up there, you've got a counter surfer, and you want to just use management to help keep the dog out of the kitchen so that you're not stressed, you're not yelling at the dog, right? You also would want to consider leash tethers. I know lots of our homes are having more of an open floor plan, which is beautiful, but it makes it hard for us to put up baby gates. So if you're in a situation where you can't physically put up a baby gate and you don't have an X pen, you might consider using a tether. When we use a tether, it's basically just taking the leash and attaching it to the harness of the dog and then tying it to something heavy that they can't move, okay? When we put a dog on a tether, they must remain under supervision. We don't want to tether them and leave them. And like Camille said about training, that is something you would definitely want to work with your dog on, because if they have not been on a tether before, it could scare them, it could stress them out, and then they start barking. So you'd want to make sure that you've practiced that skill if you think you might need it. Another option for management would be a crate, okay? You could give your dog a frozen Kong, put them in a crate in another room so they can't see or hear you, and they can just go take a nap, okay? And that kind of transitions us into our next topic, which is, what do we do day of if it doesn't go quite as we planned? Maybe your dog is a little bit worried about people coming in the door. Maybe we're working on some behavior modification with your dog. Dog is just really emphatic about life and like people come in the door and you want to just avoid the chaos, remember, regardless of your reason, it is always okay and sometimes better to put your dog in a crate in another bedroom. When you do that, again, we want to, the crate has been trained as a behavior. I like to put a little note on the door if it's close to a bathroom so that nobody goes in the door. And I'll turn on, like classical music in the room to help keep the dog relaxed and help drown out noises of other activities happening in the house. But that might be a good option for you too. I think some people worry about putting their dogs away and not be part of it. But I often will put my dogs away if we've got a big group of people at the house, especially if there's alcohol involved or kids around and you're hosting. You can't really spend time supervising everything. And it's totally okay to do that. You don't need to feel guilty about doing it. And like I said, sometimes it's a safer, better option. Camille, do you have anything to add to, day of management, what to expect, what to prevent?
Yeah, I would say, the important part is knowing your dog and being realistic about how much fun they're having. I have different dogs in my house, and I know one of them loves to have company over, and he's easy to manage because he just wants to hang out, and he's happy just being with the people. My Shepherd loves people, but because she loves people so much, she's not great at parties because she will just nonstop ask for, play with me, what about here? So it's just a lot easier for her if she's put away with a food puzzle, and for me, because then I can focus my attention on actually enjoying the party, and then she can actually relax and not have all of that, over arousal. And, oh my God, there's a party going on. So it's really important to know your dog. And, sometimes we want our dogs to be in the middle of a party because we think that's what they will enjoy the most, but really, once they've said hi to everybody, they just enjoy being quiet. If they have a nice food puzzle or food toy just to play with, they're as happy, if not happier, just being in a quiet spot than being in the middle of all the commotion going on.
Yeah. I think it's hard because we love our dogs like family, and Camille and I obviously do too. But like Camille said, I think sometimes it's important to be realistic because a lot of the things that we enjoy as people are actually kind of scary for dogs. Big crowds with lots of people can create a little bit of stress for our dogs. Dogs tend to have more issues or outbursts if space is small. So if you've got big dogs and a small house, that might be, one reason alone that you want to put them away. If you're still working on any training skills like jumping up or counter surfing or how to relax and your dog is pretty amped up, that might be a good reason too, because you want to be able to spend time and enjoy the company of the people that you're with. And that gets a lot harder to do if you're having to train and manage your dog. So plan ahead, right? And even if you decide, hey, I want my dog to be out, I want them to enjoy everything. If you notice that that's not happening, that your dog is not happy, stressed, or even you start to get stressed having to work with the dog while everybody's here, then feel free to put them away. Sometimes it's just easier and more relaxing for you too. I just want to remind you guys that we will be taking questions. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments below, and we will get to those when we are wrapping up here. The last thing that we're going to talk about is a really important concept, and it is all about traveling. So I did a video actually with Georgia Public Broadcasting, and we will reshare that because it gives you some travel tips. But traveling with your dog is way more stressful and overwhelming. And there's a lot of things we need to think about preparing in transit and then once we're in a brand new place. So Camille, why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, when you're traveling with a dog, you want to be as prepared as you can possibly be. So you want to have all of those food puzzles and food toys and toys ready and stuff for traveling. You also want to have kind of a route mapped out. So when I drove from Florida to Georgia, I had 2 different parks that I had mapped out that I knew I could stop for a hike, not only for my dog to stretch her legs and get some kind of physical exercise, but also for safety. I didn't feel safe and comfortable having her go potty at a rest stop because it's right by the highway, and that just, even though she's not a scaredy dog, it was, I think, a lot. So I figured we'll go to a quiet spot where we can really enjoy being out. We can both stretch our legs. but you want, it takes an hour because you have to go off route, you have to stop, you have to walk your dog, you have to come back. So those are things that you need to plan for when you're traveling.
Yep.
Same thing with overnights. If you have a 12-hour drive, as a person only, I can drive 12 hours in a day. With a dog, you can't. It's not going to happen. You need to stop every few hours for a nice walk. They'll need to have a stop overnight. Same thing if your dog hasn't been in the car for long car rides, you want to get them used to it before, so that make sure that they don't have any car sickness.
Yep.
Because
or even just stress in the car,
because in the car.
You don't want to drive with 12 hours with a dog that's terrified of the car.
Yeah, that's just panting and a total mess, in the back. So you want to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're familiar. You also want to make sure they're safe in the car. So having a crash-tested crate or an airline carrier is really nice. I tend to avoid wire crates because they're really not as sturdy as they look. And so in case of a crash, they tend to just fold and buckle under the pressure. So if you don't have a crate, then the other option is to have your dog with a sturdy harness and attached to the seatbelt, so that they can't just fly around the cabin of the car if you do get into an accident. So those are things you really want to consider. Also, making sure your dog has tags at all time and is microchipped, so that if they do get lost, it's really easy to identify them and find them. And
that your information on the microchip has been updated. Please be sure to check that, because you don't want to lose your dog and somebody finds it without a collar, but they have no way of reaching you.
Yeah, for sure. And so the same thing, thinking about stop areas that are safe for your dog. Rest stops are very convenient because they're right there and you just pull up and there's grass and you can stop and it takes 2 seconds, but they're also really not safe. It's very scary for dogs to be right on the highway. It's very loud.
Oh, there we go.
There's lots of smells going on. So, you want to take that into consideration. Making sure that your dog's equipment.
Yes.
Am I breaking up?
You were. Yep. That's okay. We got you now, though.
All right. Making sure that your dog's equipment that you're walking them is the right size and in working order. I usually will recommend having a martingale collar on your dogs when you travel, because those they can't get out of, especially if you have a dog that is a little bit prone to get spooked, because it takes half a second for a dog to literally back out of their harness and take off.
Yeah. If you have a dog that's really spooky, you might even consider 2 leashes, one attached to a body harness, one attached to a martingale collar. And you might think, gosh, that's overkill. But the last thing you want to do is lose your dog in a place where they don't know where they are, because they're not going to be able to find their way back. And if they're spooky, then other people are going to have a hard time getting their hands on your dog to help you get the dog back.
Yeah.
So. Yep, absolutely. Some other things that I do when I travel with dogs, if I have a rest stop, like an overnight, and then once I get to a new place, I always make sure that I know where the nearest 24-hour vet is. And I know that probably seems crazy to some people. Never know when you're going to have an emergency, and when you're panicked and freaked out because something bad has happened, your brain isn't quite processing, right? But if you have that information already pulled up, it makes it a lot easier for you. The other thing that I'll do is I always travel with a little information sheet, and I will take a picture of this and show you guys what it looks like. But basically, in emergency, open this, and it has emergency contact information for people that won't be in the car with me. It has vaccine records. It has kind of a note to whoever finds and takes my dog, letting them know that whatever medically needs to be covered, I will cover it. It won't be an issue. Just making sure that if something were to happen to me, I know my dog would be taken care of. And, fortunately, it's never had to be used, but I always like to have that on hand just in case. And then let's talk about once we get to our final destination. So the travel itself will be exhausting for everybody. But then once we get to our final destination, remember that your dog's in a brand new place. They don't know where they are. It smells different. Their normal relaxation places is not there. And so plan for a little bit of stress. Okay. So Camille, talk us through how, when you travel with your dog, kind of what you do once you reach your final destination to help them relax. What's your setup look like?
Yeah, so I always try to travel with at least one bed or blanket that my dog is familiar with and has a strong scent, so that they have at least one item that they know from home that smells like home.
Yep.
And then they can easily go relax on, especially if you have a really nice settle or place. That's a really easy behavior to kind of move around and travel with. And so when I get to a new place, that's usually my first go-to is, okay, sniff around, we'll walk around the area that we are so that we can pick up all the smells, and then we'll do a nice just go settle so that we have kind of this familiar not only smell but also a familiar skill that we're working on, because you do want to try to get to routine as quickly as possible, so that things become predictable for your dog. And over the holidays, routine is hard because obviously you're not working, you're in a different place. There's, you're sleeping late in the morning, you'll go to bed later, so the routine is going to be off a little bit, but I try to keep things as close to routine as possible, just so that it's still very predictable for the dog. Safety-wise, making sure that they're always on leash, especially if I'm in an unfamiliar place. Even if I'm in a house with a yard, the first time I'll go out in the yard with my dog on leash, just because you never know if the fence is not secure. Big dogs can jump fences pretty easily and pretty quickly, even if they've never done it before. So you want to make sure that they kind of get a sense of the area beforehand, and always supervise, so that, I don't just, oh, okay, you've been in the yard twice. Open the door, have fun, see you later. I'm always, close by, so that they have my scent too, and they kind of have something familiar that they can always kind of come back to and guide. Oh, okay, I'm in a new place, but mommy's here, so we're okay.
Right.
And a lot of it too is, getting your dog used to, especially if you're going to do a lot of traveling and you want your dog to come with you, is to do short trips first to get them accustomed to being in new places and, short times. And then, we go right back home, and here's your blanket, and here's how we settle and how we practice those skills, so that, all of that routine is familiar to them, even though they're in a different spot every time. The actions that you do just are very familiar, and they're just, okay, we're in a new spot. No big deal.
Yeah, bringing along favorite toys of theirs, bringing along puzzle toys so that you can keep, enriching them while you're there. If you normally crate your dog at home, make sure you bring along the crate. And just like Camille said that she practices settle on a mat in a new place, also practice going in and out of the crate, because just because they're used to their crate at home in the bedroom or in the kitchen doesn't mean they're automatically going to be okay with the same crate in a brand new place. It could cause some stress. So practicing repetitions of going in and out on cue, turning it into a fun game, creating them while you're there so that you can reinforce calm and quiet behavior would be a good idea as well. And then when you leave them, bring that Kong along so that you can stuff it and freeze it and give it to them, if they have to be closed, helping continue association with the crate in the new place. I also always bring along music with me. I have a little music box that you can just plug into the wall, and all it plays is dog music. So I'll bring that along and turn that on too, just to help drown out any noises outside that might stress them out and help keep them relaxed and comfortable. So again, that's something I do at home. So I'm going to try to keep that routine similar so that I can help decrease the stress of being in a new place. So that would all be good things to do. And then in terms of exercise, I know that you probably will be traveling to visit family or friends, and things are going to be a little bit different, but whatever your dog is used to getting at home, you're going to want to try to do the same thing there, because it can be hard. But if your dog has a bunch of extra energy, it can create more stress in the crate when you leave them, and it kind of throws them off a little bit. So making sure that they're getting that physical and mental tiredness from exercise and from training will really help the dog relax in that new place. And then always be prepared for the unexpected, which I know sounds crazy because we never know what might happen. But if your dog is really stressed out in that place and can't be left, make sure you are prepared to handle that. A couple years ago, I went to a dog training expo and brought along Lennon, and he had been super comfortable and confident, was traveling for dog shows all the time, so he was used to it, and he got really freaked out. The elevator was glass, the floors were really slippery, and for whatever reason, he started kind of unraveling. And so I had driven all the way up to Ohio, literally got in the car within, half a day of being there and drove home, because it wasn't worth it to me to have that kind of emotional fallout from him. So I realize that you might not be able to get in the car and head home from holidays, but make sure that you're kind of prepared for the unexpected, because you don't really know how your dog is going to be able to handle it. And if they start having a hard time, make sure you kind of have a backup plan on what you can do with them to help them adjust the best you can. That training or the travel video, I will post along with our other tutorial videos that we're going to post to help you guys kind of gain a little bit more knowledge over the next couple of days to help you prepare for the holidays. And it looks like we do have a question here, so I'll put it up on the screen. So Brittany asks, question regarding travel. Any advice for keeping your pup calm and getting acclimated if you're staying in a new place? Copper definitely got a little stressed when we had to kennel him when we were on vacation in a new environment. So that kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. You know, you never really know how your dog is going to respond, and the crate in one place looks very different to them than a crate in another place, and it could create a lot of stress. So practicing crate games when you get there, going in and out on cue, reinforcing calm and quiet behavior, and then anything that you normally do at home, like music or a fan or a Kong, make sure that you're doing that to help them stay relaxed. Anything else, Camille?
Yeah, I would say, preparing ahead of time too. So because, just because your dog is used to being crated inside your home, it doesn't mean they can do it anywhere else. So, keeping that in mind too. And if you have to travel ahead of time, a few weeks, is to take the crate somewhere else. And then let's crate you here for a few minutes, maybe crate you in the car and see how that goes. So that they have those skills kind of on the go and they know what to expect, and so it's not completely new, because it throws them off, if you're in a completely new place, and then to be restricted too, especially if you're being contained. A lot of dogs have a hard time because obviously they want to be loose and able to flee should anything happen. So it's a skill that needs to be practiced ahead of time for sure.
And day of, if you're planning on leaving them for any reason, make sure you do get some exercise in beforehand. A nice long sniffing walk with a little bit of training repetitions in there will help kind of tire the dog out. And if they're tired, they're more likely to sleep when you're gone versus be awake and wondering where the heck you went. So practicing, again, trying to keep routine as close to home as possible too. Try not to deal about your departure. It's not, oh my gosh, I love you, I miss you, I'll be back soon, because then that's going to increase their anxiety about the situation as well. If your dog is kind of, they're nervous, they're anxious, you're definitely going to want to practice these skills before you travel with them, so that you can try, like Camille said, moving the crate from one room to another in your house, even just giving them more opportunities to practice the skill with a little bit of change, because dogs don't generalize very well. So if they only get crated in one place all the time, they're going to have a hard time transitioning to a brand new environment. So just help them out. Make sure that you're practicing that before you go. And then make sure you bring along nice high value treats, because if they are a little bit stressed, they might not be interested in their normal food. So if you normally stuff that Kong with kibble, maybe plan on bringing some fresh chicken that you could put in there and kind of mix with the kibble, just to kind of increase the value of that Kong that you leave them with. And that hopefully will keep them distracted on that as you walk out the door from them. Awesome question, Brittany. Thank you. All right. So let's quick kind of wrap up everything we talked about, because we did go over quite a few things. The first thing we talked about was all of the training skills that you're going to want to practice. We mentioned attention on cue, working on door manners so your dog doesn't, dash out the door every time it opens. We talked about teaching coming when called, and specifically working on that skill at that threshold. We talked about settling on that. Dogs how to relax, and trying to practice that skill with some distraction, some duration, to kind of help as best you can prep them for day of. Do we talk about any other skills?
We did
leave it
and then being in a crate or pen quietly and calmly. So if you guys know you might need to use some kinds of management, practice it as a skill. So tether them and, feed them treats for settling on their mat. Try to keep sessions short. When you work with your dogs on these skills, I'd recommend 3 to 5 minutes, a couple times a day. It'd be really
before they eat their breakfast, practice for 5 minutes, then feed them their food, right? If you come home at lunch, try to fit a few reps in there, and then again in the evening. And then that way you've got a schedule that you can work with. And if you've got more than one person in your house, get them on board. It doesn't all have to fall on just one person. The more consistent everybody is in the house, the faster the dog is going to learn, and the better the dog is going to learn, because then they know that the rules apply to everybody, right? And this is what we do. So Camille, do you want a quick wrap up about with exercise, both physical and mental?
Yeah, so make sure that your dog is well exercised physically the day before, so that you can kind of get that next nice tired day after. But the day of, you really want to be mindful of how you exercise your dog, and you want to make sure that you're not getting them all amped up. So nice long walks, enriching, sniffing walks, decompression walks are great to get your dog out and about, but also kind of get their brain stimulated. Yep. And then having those nice food puzzles and mental enrichment toys ready, so that your dog can kind of keep their brain occupied as you get ready to party, or as people are coming in, so that they still have something that they can be occupied with.
Yep, absolutely. And then day of, plan on using some management. A lot of you guys are still working on impulse control. You're working on polite greetings. You're working on how to stay calm. So make sure that you have a backup plan in case it's a little bit crazy, right? A little bit chaotic. Make sure that you've got an idea of what you can do, where your dog can go, how to keep them relaxed. And that might be a crate upstairs in one of the bedrooms, kind of out of sight. And honestly, don't be afraid to put your dogs in there to start. Holidays are stressful, they're fun, there's a lot of activity, a lot of chaos. And just because we really enjoy this time doesn't necessarily mean our dogs will. There's a lot of things that could make them stressed out or worried about it. So don't be afraid or feel guilty about, putting them in the bedroom for a nap. Meet their needs first with physical and mental exercise, and then feel free to let them have a break, and that's okay. And a lot of the times they would actually prefer that. So keep a close eye on them, especially if you have family or friends that will be coming over that have kids. We want to make sure that all of those interactions are under 100% supervision. We don't want any hugging or squeezing of the dogs, because that could result in a bite, and we want to make sure that we are preventing that. Okay. And if you're at all worried about your dog's behavior, or you're working on some behavior modification for anxiety or aggression or resource guarding, it probably is best to just let your dog rest quietly in another room and just avoid the stress of that completely. Because when friends and family are around, things can get busy, we're going to get distracted, and accidents can happen. And we want to make sure that we're preventing those. And then real quick, let's sum up what we talked about with traveling.
Yeah, so making sure that you plan ahead, being prepared is half the battle. So making sure that your route is planned ahead, that you've planned potty breaks in, not only in the time it's going to take you to get there, but also route-wise, so that you know where to stop that's safe for your dog. Making sure all of your equipment is, secure, fits well on your dog, so that, they can't slip out of their harness or their collars, having 2 leashes if needed. Same thing with the car, having your dog restrained with a seat belt or in a nice crash tested crate, so that if you do get into an accident, your dog is safe and will be contained inside the car, because that's one of the things that you don't want to avoid, on top of being an accident, is that your dog is now loose somewhere, scared after a crash. And also getting prepared ahead of time, making sure your dog has the practice of riding in the car for long times. Because you don't want to find out the day that you have to drive for 7 hours that your dog
that'd be a bummer,
car sick or car anxious, and then it's no fun for anyone. So and you can talk to your vet about car sickness meds, or even anti-anxiety meds the day that you're traveling, to help your dog if you know that there's going to be a problem, that you can still travel, but they just need a little bit of extra help for that day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lots of good tips. We will continue to monitor this thread. So if you guys have questions and you're kind of tuning in after the fact, please feel free to post them. We will answer them and get back to you. And then be prepared and keep an eye on our page, because over the next couple of days, we're going to keep unrolling new videos and new information for you guys. There's going to be some behavior training tutorial videos to help you guys work on attention, you know, waiting at the door, settle on the mat, all those skills that we talked about you needing for the holidays. We're also going to do some more information about puzzle toys and Kong stuffing, and then for so if you guys have questions, even questions that are specific to kind of your situation or what you're planning on doing with your dog, reach out to us, let us know. We're here to help. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you guys have a wonderful holiday season. All right. Thanks, guys.